You may think that telling people your problems will lighten your load. But what if I told you that doing so might actually make it heavier? I have met many people who carry deep wounds in their hearts, but instead of finding healing, they end up carrying more shame, more disappointment, more confusion. Why? Because they place their burden in the wrong hands. There was a man I spoke with after one of my meetings. He came up with tired eyes and a worn-out voice. He said he felt like his soul was bleeding, that life had dealt him more than he could carry. So he did what he thought was right. He talked to people, anyone who would listen, friends, co-workers, even strangers online. He poured out his heart, thinking someone would finally understand. But what happened was the opposite. Some listened for a moment, then disappeared. Others gave shallow answers that made things worse. A few used his pain as gossip, and the rest simply could not relate. He was more alone after speaking than before. And so are many people today. They tell the world their story, hoping for healing, but all they find is noise. The world is loud, but it is not always listening. It is crowded, but it is not always caring. And even when someone listens, they may not have the strength to carry what you share. You were not meant to carry your burden alone, but you were also not meant to give it to just anyone. There is a difference between talking to people and turning to God. People may care, but they are limited. God is not. The Bible says, cast your burden on the Lord, and He will sustain you. Not the neighbor, not the comment section, not the crowd, but the Lord. When you place your pain in His hand, something begins to shift. He does not push you away. He does not grow tired of your voice. He does not misunderstand. Hedrofsnir. He lifts. Restores. He heals, and He does it without conditions. That is why the first thing you must do when the storm comes is not post about it, not vent it to everyone around, but run to the one who already knows it all and still loves you completely. Before you open your mouth to people, open your heart to God, because when you start with Him, peace comes first, strength comes next, and wisdom follows. You do not have to hide your pain, but you do have to choose where to bring it. Bring it to the throne, not the timeline. Bring it to the one who hears, understands, and transforms. And in doing so, you will find what no human voice can offer: true peace, real strength, eternal hope. Let me ask you something personal. When life gets heavy and your heart feels like it can barely beat under the weight of it all, who do you run to first? Who hears the cries you never say out loud? Is it a friend? A sibling? Someone online? Or do you fall to your knees and talk to the one who shaped your heart in the first place? I ask you this not to accuse, but to awaken, because many of us live surrounded by people, yet feel completely alone. We scroll through conversations, but never really feel heard. And maybe, just maybe, the problem is not the lack of ear, but the absence of the right voice. I have met souls that were desperate to be understood, pouring their hearts into places that could not hold them. Some gave their pain to those who only offered pity. Others entrusted their burdens to those who turned them into whispers in rooms they never entered. And sadly, many learned too late that not every shoulder is strong enough to carry what the soul needs to release. You were made for fellowship. Yes, you were made for love, for kindness, for connection, but above all, You were made for communion with God. There is a sacred space that only He can fill. There is a depth in your sorrow that only His love can reach. And right now, as you listen, I want you to pause and ask yourself, have I given my burdens to people before giving them to God? If the answer is yes, you are not alone. But you do not have to stay there. Today can be the day you turn around, the day you stop chasing peace in the wrong places and start receiving it from the only source that never runs dry. And if that is your desire, if something inside you is whispering, I need that shift, then I want to invite you to respond, not for me, but for you. If your heart is saying yes, just type, I am ready, or even just one in the comments. That little step is not for applause. It is for your own soul to say, I am no longer running in circles. I am running home. And as someone who shares these words not from a stage, but from my heart, let me tell you, seeing that response means everything. It tells me I am not speaking into silence. It tells me there is someone out there reaching for something real, something lasting, and that alone makes every word worth it. Because the presence of one seeking heart is more powerful than a crowd without hunger. So if you are ready to let go of broken answers and take hold of divine peace, make it known. Let this be the moment your direction changes. And as you do, heaven leans in, not just to listen, but to answer. Some people will nod while you speak, but deep down they are measuring your weakness. They are not really listening. They are silently comparing. They do not ask how to lift you up. They wonder why you are not stronger. And that is the hidden danger behind opening your heart too quickly. The world teaches you to speak your truth, but it rarely teaches you where to speak it. You may think you are finding relief, but what you are really doing is handing over your pain to people who may not know what to do with it. And worse, some do not want to help you at all. Some are simply curious. Some quietly wait for you to fall so they can feel taller. I have seen people open up to others, hoping for a gentle hand, only to be met with silent judgment. They walk away not lighter, but heavier, not healed, but more wounded. And the tragedy is not that someone failed to understand them. The tragedy is that they trusted too quickly in voices that were never safe. Not every person who listens is a friend. Not every friend is a safe place. Even well-meaning people can mishandle fragile things. That is why the Bible tells us to be wise, to guard our hearts, to be slow to speak and quick to pray, because some wounds do not come from the original pain, but from the way people respond to it. You thought you were being honest, but they called it weakness. You wanted support, but they gave you distance. And now you carry not just the problem, but the shame of having shared it. That is why God offers you something different. He is not impressed by appearances. He does not compare your pain with someone else's. He does not wonder why you are not stronger. He knows the full weight of what you are carrying, even when you pretend you are fine. And He is the only one who can look at your brokenness and still call you beloved. So the next time your heart feels heavy, and your first instinct is to reach for a phone or a friend, pause it. Ask yourself, am I looking for comfort or am I looking for Christ? Because only one of them can give me the peace that lasts. There is nothing wrong with needing help, but there is everything wrong with putting your heart in the wrong hands. Be wise, be discerning, and above all, Be honest with God before you are vulnerable with the world. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. And that is where healing begins. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever shared your pain with someone only to feel smaller afterward? Not because they said something cruel, but because they looked at you differently. They tilted their head with soft eyes, nodded with gentle pity. And from that moment on, they no longer saw you as strong, they saw you as fragile, broken. And that subtle shift changed everything. You were not reaching for sympathy, you were reaching for strength. But instead of being lifted, you were labeled. That is what pity can do. It feels warm at first, but soon it becomes a cage. I have heard stories from people who only wanted someone to stand with them, but instead were wrapped in soft sorrow and held down by the weight of low expectations. It sounds kind, but it steals your fight. It removes your identity and replaces it with your problem. And from that point forward, no matter how much progress you make, some will keep bringing up your past, your struggle, as if that is all you are. But let me tell you something clear. You are not your failure. You are not your valley. You are not your season of weakness. You are a child of God. You were made to rise. You were born again to overcome. And anyone who keeps you tied to the lowest moment of your life is not walking in the Spirit of Christ. God never looks at you through the lens of pity. He looks at you through the lens of purpose. He sees the battle, but he also sees the strength he placed within you. When Jesus healed the lame man, he did not pat him on the back and say, "Stay there." He said, "Rise, take up your mat, and walk." That is not pity. That is power. And that is what God wants to speak over you. But you must stop surrounding yourself with voices that keep you on the ground. Stop entertaining people who only talk about your wounds. Start walking with those who remind you of your worth. And most of all, listen to the one who calls you victorious. If this speaks to you today, if you are ready to let go of false comfort and reach for real strength, then let me know you are here. Type in the comments, "I am ready," or simply the number 1. That is all. Just one step. One sign that says you are still standing, you are still hungry, you are still listening, and that matters more than you know. Because I am not here to speak at a screen. I am here to speak to you. And if you are hearing this, then maybe today is the day you stop accepting pity and start stepping into power. Not in your strength, but in His. There is a danger that many do not see until it is too late. It is not loud. It does not come with warning signs. It often hides behind a smile and a handshake, but it has the power to turn your most sacred pain into something cheap. I am speaking of gossip. It starts small, just a whisper, just a curious question. But that whisper spreads. Your story, which came from a place of deep hurt, becomes entertainment for someone else. They may not even mean to harm you. They may think they are only sharing what they heard. But the moment your burden is passed from one mouth to another, it loses its weight and becomes a tale. And that tale is no longer under your control. People you have never spoken to begin to form opinions about you, not from your voice, but from someone else's version. And in that moment, what was personal becomes public. What was sacred becomes scattered. And your heart, already fragile, begins to break in new places. That is the risk you take when you trust the wrong ears. That is why the Bible tells us to be careful with our words and with the company we keep. Because words can be weapons, and some people are not protectors, they are carriers. They do not carry your pain to the feet of Jesus. They carry it to places where it becomes twisted, judged, and mocked. And once it spreads, you cannot pull it back. That is why there is a better way, a safer way, a holy way. Bring your pain to the one who never gossips. Bring your story to the one who keeps it between you and him. God is not in the business of exposing you for shame. He is in the business of covering you in grace. When you pour out your heart before him, he does not repeat your pain. He redeems it. He does not analyze your past. He speaks to your future, and in that quiet place where only he is present, you will find something the world cannot give you. You will find peace that does not depend on being understood. You will find healing that is not shaped by the opinions of others. You will find strength that comes from knowing you are fully known and still fully loved. So if your story is heavy, if you are tempted to hand it to people for relief, wait, ask yourself, where will this story go after I speak it? Who will hold it with care? Who will see me not just for my problem, but for the person I am becoming? There is only one who always sees you clearly, only one who hears without judging and listens without spreading. That one is Jesus. Give him the first word, and you will not need to fear the last. Every person you meet carries something you do not see. Behind the smile, behind the routine, behind the steady walk is often a silent battle. It could be heartbreak. It could be fear. It could be guilt. And yet, in a world full of unseen burdens, we often expect others to carry ours too. We open our hearts hoping someone will take the weight away. But sometimes we forget they are already carrying their own. This is not about people being unkind. It is about people being human, limited, finite, tired. You may think someone will understand you, but understanding takes more than listening. It takes capacity. And when someone is already stretched thin, even your truth can feel like too much. I do not say this to discourage you from seeking support, but to remind you that the help you seek must come from a deeper well. Not every soul can carry the weight of another. Not every heart can stretch wide enough to make room for yours. You may have spoken to someone who nodded gently but grew distant over time. You may have noticed how their words became shorter, their presence became scarce. It does not always mean they stopped caring. Sometimes it just means they could not carry both their world and yours. And that is why we must stop expecting people to do what only God can do. He never grows tired. He never avoids your pain. He never changes the subject because he is overwhelmed. God is never too full to receive more of you. He is never distracted, never impatient, never emotionally drained. And because of that, he is the only one who can listen deeply, carry fully, and love endlessly. When we go to people first, we often come away with confusion, not because they are wrong, but because they are not complete. But when we go to God first, we come away with peace, not because the problem vanished, but because the presence of the answer showed up, and that changes everything. You must stop measuring the value of your story by how people respond to it. They might say it is not that bad. They might say they have been through worse, and that leaves you feeling small. But God never compares your pain. He simply holds it, and in his hands, it is not dismissed. It is not minimized. It is not misunderstood. It is known, and when something is truly known by love, it begins to heal. So do not be angry at those who could not carry your pain. They were never designed to be the place you rest. They were only meant to walk beside you for a time. But your refuge, your place of safety, your well that never runs dry, is the presence of God. Go there first. Stay there long, and you will rise lighter than when you came. Let me ask you something from the depths of one heart to another. Have you ever sat in silence? After everyone else has gone home, after the lights are out and the noise fades, and wondered, who really sees me? Who truly hears the cries I keep locked behind a calm face? You may walk through your day holding everything together, smiling when expected, nodding when needed, but inside there is a quiet ache. A part of you is tired of always being the strong one. You long for a place, just one place, where you can lay it all down without fear of being judged, misunderstood, or dismissed. I want you to know today, that place exists. And it is not found in a person or a post. It is found in the presence of God. He sees through every mask. He hears every word you cannot speak. He does not grow tired of your story. He does not need a reminder of your worth. He already knows it. He has known it since the first moment you drew breath. The world often expects you to have it all together, but God invites you to come just as you are, and that invitation is still open right now. I wonder if today is the day you will stop trying to fix it all alone. If today is the day you will finally say, God, I do not need another opinion. I need your voice. Because when his voice speaks, storms calm. When his hands touch, wounds heal. When his love enters, fear runs. Maybe you have been running to others hoping they will say the right thing, but deep down, you know their words cannot reach the places only God can touch. So what if you stopped chasing answers from broken vessels and turned instead to the one who is whole, eternal, and completely for you? There is a shift that happens when you bring your full self before the Lord, not the filtered version, not the rehearsed one, but the real you. That is where peace begins. That is where strength returns. And that is where you stop surviving and begin living again. I want to ask you now, not as a preacher behind a podium, but as a soul speaking to another soul, are you ready for that shift? Are you willing to stop placing your peace in fragile hands and start placing your trust in the one whose hands form the stars? If this resonates with you, if something inside you is stirring, then I invite you to respond. Type in the comments, I am ready, or even just one. That simple act is not for show. It is a declaration, a step, a seed of change. It lets me know I am not speaking into a void, but into hearts that are listening, yearning, hoping. And I want you to know, every time I see that response, it reminds me why this message matters. You matter. Your breakthrough matters. And your decision today might be the beginning of a different tomorrow. So if you are here, if you are listening, and if you are ready, let it be known. This is not just another video. This is a moment, and moments like this can become turning points when you are willing to say yes, yes to healing, yes to surrender, yes to something more. And if you say it today, you are not alone. Heaven sees it. And so do we. What if the reason you feel so exhausted is not because your burden is too heavy, But because you have been carrying it in the wrong direction, you bring your pain to people who are broken too. You bring your confusion to minds that are just as lost. You bring your fear to hearts that cannot even calm their own. And then you wonder why peace never comes, why healing feels far, why answers stay silent. But the truth is not that God has been silent. The truth is that you have been speaking to the wrong crowd. There is a throne that never closes, a presence that never grows weary, a voice that does not confuse, but restores. The Bible does not say, cast your cares on your best friend, or your favorite influencer, or your late-night conversation. It says, cast your cares on the Lord, because He cares for you. And that care is not passive. It is not distant. It is powerful. It is personal, and it is present right now. You have looked for relief in the sympathy of others, but God is offering you something greater. He is offering strength, not pity, not shallow comfort, but deep strength that steadies your soul even when the storm keeps raging. The peace of God is not the absence of trouble, it is the presence of power in the middle of it. And that is what you need, not more people to hear your story, but one Savior to redeem it, not more voices to echo your pain, but one voice to speak resurrection over it. And if you have reached the end of yourself, then you are at the beginning of something sacred, because now you are finally in the place where faith begins. Faith is not built when everything is easy. Faith is born in the silence, in the waiting, in the moment when no one else can carry what you are holding. That is where you meet the only one who truly can. So bring it to Him. The burden, the question, the ache. Bring it to Him without filter, without fear. Lay it down in prayer and pick up His promise. He said, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." That is not a metaphor. That is a promise. And promises from God never return empty. I do not know what the next part of your journey holds, but I know this. If you stop running to people first and start falling before the presence of God, your life will not be the same. He may not remove every storm, but He will walk with you through it. He may not answer the way you expect, but He will never leave you without direction. And He will speak peace so deep into your soul that no man, no voice, no trouble can take it away. So in the next video, I want to show you what happens when you actually let go, when you do not just talk about surrender, but you truly give it all to God. That is where everything begins to change. If your heart is open, then do not stop here. There is more waiting, and I will be right here to walk with you